Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with our weekly recap of all things Injustice. This is for the week of May 9th, 2024. The current character challenge is Green Lantern Red Sun or Red Sun Green Lantern. The required characters for that are Lex Luthor, Joker, and Catwoman, who you can get at Bronze, Silver, and Bronze respectively if you're looking at the lowest tier. His passive is Red Sun Energy Armor, which is Red Sun characters on Green Lantern's team take 20% less special damage and are immune to stun and crit. He's got 850 attack, 1,150 health. He was last available on the 6th of July, 2023. And importantly to note, this is what would have been last week if we didn't have that interruption in the addition of Gaslight Batman.
Right.
So we are sort of... It's not like there was 1 week interruption where it got changed. It looks like Gaslight Batman was sort of added in between. So the challenge cycle seems to have been lengthened by, so far, verifiably at least one character.
If stuff keeps on happening. We'll talk about that more after we... But...
Really, the question is if there still is a challenge cycle, right? But this is one piece of evidence that there might still be a challenge cycle, because we are still sort of approximately following what we would expect from a challenge cycle that just has currently at least Gaslight Batman added into it.
I was thinking I'd talk about this later, but since you brought it up, the patterns when there were all the other missing challenge characters were not as consistent. There would be like little mini runs and then wild interruptions. There wasn't anything as consistent as like a 40-something week pattern before, but we also got everybody. Like it wasn't clear that we were missing stuff.
It just seemed almost random before.
Right. So, let's talk about Red Sun Green Lantern. So, he's got really low stats for a challenge character because, really, I think it's been a long time since he was introduced and it was before that big power creep. But he's got a great passive that makes up for basically everything else.
Yeah.
I like the visual touch with the green armor to show that the passive is active on himself and his teammates. And it reminds me of Darkseid, where he does that. The eyes are purple when the bronze characters are enhanced by him.
Yeah, it's nice for just some visual indication. It's a nice extra touch. It makes you really feel like it's more substantive of a passive, right? When you're literally like adding physical armor onto people's models, and you're not just, bigger health is kind of nebulous because the bar is always the same size.
Right.
If they added a little bit, like they visibly stretch the bar out for you at the start of a fight, it's that kind of thing where it feels more.
Yeah. First part of his passive, he's got basically a 3-part passive. The first part of his passive is decent. 20% reduction in specials damage, always helpful, because specials are where most of the damage comes from. But it's immunity to both stun and immunity to crit. Or actually, I should say both immunity to stun and immunity to crit for Red Sun teammates and himself that make him great, especially as a starter multiplayer team. There's lots of strategies to counter being stunned and having Cloak of Destiny or Necron Scythe do a crap ton of boosted damage. But sometimes, if Luchador Bane tags in, there's nothing that you can do except eat the damage.
Yeah.
And even if you're blocking, when he stuns, you're stunned. Except when you are a Red Sun Green Lantern team. So with Red Sun Green Lantern giving stun immunity, you can still take damage if you aren't blocking, you're not paying attention, but it won't be stun boosted. And it won't be crit boosted. And if you haven't experienced it, Luchador Bane has a chance to stun when tagging in, has boosted damage for the first few seconds, and if you give him Cloak of Destiny to boost stun damage, maybe stack it with Necron Scythe and League of Assassins Knives to boost Special 1 damage and also do 50% splash damage, not only can that knock out the person that's in front of Luchador Bane, but it can also leave all the other teammates with only 1 health when they tag in. That is a real nuke. So this is real protection against that.
Yeah.
And I always like to give a little bit of history because I feel like we're always getting new viewers who are relatively new to Injustice.
And you just like it.
And
you're a bit of a historian.
I like it. Oral history. So when Cloak of Destiny was first released, there was a short period of time where Batman Beyond was the only character protected against stun. And that's all of his passive. So it was a big deal. Red Sun Green Lantern, the most effective counter against Cloak of Destiny at the time.
Yeah.
To keep you from being hit by stun bomb. Then when augmentations came a little bit later and crit damage could be increased from just 1.5 times to 2.5 times damage, Red Sun Green Lantern got even better. Because taking 100% damage feels a lot better when another team would be taking 250% damage.
Yeah, it's just such a huge reduction in the amount of damage output you have if you are going up against a maxed out team to take less special damage and not take that critical damage and not get stunned. Like, it can really, really mess up a team that's fighting against you.
So then when Flashpoint Batman was introduced after that, that boosted crit damage, the possible crit damage, even more from a max of 2.5 times to 5 times damage. Red Sun Green Lantern, even better. 100%. So much better than 500% damage.
Yeah.
The main vulnerability is his passive won't protect against a mid-special stun, like with Batgirl's Special 1 or Batman Ninja Batman's Special 2. And he can still take damage if it's damage over time, or when it's a teammate assist. So when Flashpoint Deathstroke has the team assist coming in, they will still do crit damage. And when Harley Quinn, Suicide Squad Harley Quinn, brings in her Joker teammate, that damage is also crit, and that you're not protected against the crit from that.
So every once in a while they can sneak through the gaps a little bit.
Right. So the biggest problem, I think, with the Red Sun team is it's all defensive, right?
Yeah.
There isn't a character to put it over the top. Great defensive potential and decent offensive potential, but nothing like,
special.
Right, nothing wild like Flashpoint Batman.
Not as good as most of the teams that we use on a regular basis.
Right.
Usually they're in some way exceptionally good at doing a lot of damage output fast.
Right. So Red Sun Green Lantern is good. Red Sun Wonder Woman is great for her power generation boost. Third slot could be Red Sun Batman to take advantage of Unblockable Special 1 with all that power you're generating, or Red Sun Superman for the basic damage boost. Not as good, but still something, would be the team boosted speed with Red Sun Deathstroke, or the team boosted health with Red Sun Solomon Grundy. So Red Sun was the original team universe with synergy, where not only do passives apply to all same universe teammates, but the passive gets better with more of the same universe teammates, but one exception, which is actually Green Lantern.
And it's a fine exception because he's already good enough.
Right, you can't really enhance that.
Having it apply to 3 people is 3 times as good as only having it apply to himself.
Right. So previously we've done teams where Green Lantern is really helping up the whole team. This team demo that you're going to be watching in the current video, you're seeing involves our usual Tier S support, Hawkgirl and Rebirth Raven. Unlike our previous team demo where we actually played around a bit and had New 52 Wonder Woman instead of a Red Sun character as the third.
Yeah.
So with Green Lantern as a star of the team and special specialist, it's easier to notice a few things that we missed when we were using him mainly as a support character to protect the team. So the swipe mini game for Special 2 has to be done twice. Once for the first 2 hits, then again for the third, which is a bit of a pain. But the fact that each swipe is good for 10% on a special instead of the more frequent 5% makes up for it. I probably don't mention that nearly as often, but I think the mini games of a special makes a big difference on how good that special is, because if you're really likely to get 200%, then you're getting full value. And if the swipe with only 5%, it's a lot more difficult than as my hands
Easier
get older.
mini games are basically more damage.
Sure. But my hands are getting more arthritic. I mean, I used to be able to do 200% no matter what the mini game was.
Yeah.
But it gets a lot harder now.
And also, like, the point is that you shouldn't need to work harder, right? Like, making it physically easier on your body is actually better.
Yeah. Oh, and the second point about a Special 2 is that it's got 3 hits. Each does about a third of the damage. It's not exact, but it's close enough. And this type of Special 2 is good because, so it's multiple hits, but not too many hits. Each one does a decent amount of damage, and each one can knock out the opponent. So what makes it even better is that opponents that have a low health passive, so a passive that's triggered by low health, when you've got this amount of damage on multiple hits, then you've got a better chance of taking the opponent down from above their threshold to trigger the passive to below, like past the point and knock them out. And it's unlike the later higher powered challenge characters whose Special 2 can only knock out the opponent on the last hit, which basically guarantees the low health passive triggering. So when you're talking about, say, Raven, or who else? Is that the only person I'm thinking of? That's the biggest one, because what you're doing is you're triggering her health swap, and she's guaranteed to still be alive when you finish your Special 2, no matter how high the damage is.
Yeah. So this is normally where we would predict what we're seeing next week. And we will talk about it, I think, a little bit when we get to the store. But we don't really have any precedent for what's happening right now, right? maybe a new cycle, right? It might not be a cycle at all anymore, right?
Because it never used to be.
Yeah.
Before there was the missing stuff, it was not a cycle. Right.
We are going to need to wait, even if we go back on sort of exactly what the cycle was before, right? Because right now we are on what it would have been.
But we have a clue. We'll talk about it later.
We have a clue.
We have one big clue.
But until we get enough data, we don't know what we're in right now, right?
Right.
And we won't know for, months. The only thing that we will know is if we're getting new characters, right? If stuff is different than it used to be.
Air quote, new characters. Yeah. Characters that haven't been around for 4 years. Old characters that have been unavailable for years.
Old characters made new.
Yes.
So, anyways, moving on to the multiplayer reward, which, in contrast feels a lot less interesting at this current moment in time. We have Flashpoint Aquaman. His passive is Barrier Reef. I was going to say he's got a Barrier Reef, which feels a little less descriptive, which is during combat, Aquaman has a chance on combo enders to call the oceans to his aid. This drains all his opponent's power by 10%, and Flashpoint characters on Aquaman's team gain a water shield on tag-in that reflects 40% of special damage back at the enemy once hit the shield is used up until the next tag-in. He's got 1,350 attack, 1,250 health. He was last available on the 5th of October, 2023. We expect Heart of Darkness because unlike the challenge characters, the multiplayer reward characters or reward cycle was not missing anything and has still been consistent for years at this point.
All right, so his passive, it's a couple parts. It's just okay. It's not game changing, and up until now I've pretty much ignored discussing that, and I'm not going to change that now. The most important part of him is that he's Flashpoint. Why does it matter? There are only 3 Flashpoint characters. Flashpoint Batman has the absolute best team passive, and Flashpoint Aquaman can take advantage of that and boost his crit damage. Yeah. That's what makes him great. The next most important part of him is also that he is Flashpoint, and Flashpoint Deathstroke can take advantage of Aquaman and do extra damage on Deathstroke's specials. Mm-hmm. So it's like that old canard where people say, what's the most important thing in real estate? It's location, location, location. What's the most important thing about Flashpoint Aquaman? It's Flashpoint, Flashpoint, Flashpoint. Mm-hmm. There was a stretch where we used the Flashpoint team for years to farm multiplayer as fast as possible. You can see some of our videos in previous Q&As where we literally full seasons of just this team.
Yeah.
And there's I'll link a video where we talk about the rationale behind the team that we used and why it was so good. Mm-hmm. And the way we like to gear Aquaman specifically was with Astra Harness, Claw of Horus, and Razal Scimitar. Explanation, way more detail in that video.
Yeah. So moving on to the store, we have our sort of piece of information that next week might be also something new again. And that is the fact that we have the Injustice 2 Superman pack. That is $12.99 Canadian.
The only currency that matters.
Yeah. It is our, clue, as it usually is, to what next week's challenge might be.
But not corroborating clue, because we have no other clue.
Yeah, because we don't have sort of the date on the challenge. So, if it's Injustice 2 Superman next week, importantly, 1, if you don't already have him, super important to try to get him, if possible. Yeah. And 2, the required characters are Harley Quinn, Solomon Grundy, and Doomsday.
Right.
So, if you're a new player, do your best to get those. Right. Or, if you're sort of an intermediate collection level
Listen,
player.
If you don't have it, you just want him. He's good for a lot of things. We demonstrated him most recently September of last year. Yeah. Just a reminder, too, it doesn't unlock. You don't get credits with it. Don't bother buying it because there's a really good chance with how things have been going that this is going to be next. Oh, we should talk more about the patterns a little bit, only because we've got notes on it. The last few times Injustice 2 Superman was a challenge character. The next week was Injustice 2 Aquaman.
Yeah, which is another missing character.
Right. So let's see what happens. We've got lots of lots of ideas.
It would be great if it was Injustice 2 Aquaman. It would be great if it looked like they were just alternating new character and old pack. Because, I guess if you're putting them back in, you want to keep people's attention for as long as possible. So having them spaced out every other week or something like that would make sense to me anyways.
Right.
But yeah, lots to stay tuned for.
Yeah.
We also have the Arkham Asylum pack for its second week. We have the character bundle Rebirth team. It's $24.99, and it comes with Rebirth Wally West and Rebirth Green Arrow, and it comes with the Hyperspeed suit and the longbow.
So the other thing that's changed this week, so what I was expecting, because I think it was February and March, we had 2 survivor packs. I was expecting, based on the timing in the previous cycle, that we would have another survivor pack this week, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
The one with Teen Titan Cyborg, animated Harley Quinn, and animated Batman Beyond did not show up.
Yeah, so because of your data collection and pattern recognition, we know that there's the obvious stuff that's different, but there very clearly seems to be something sort of different in the pacing and the pattern of where stuff is coming out.
In the universe, in the
which is just
universe.
One more thing that gives you a little hope that they've done something manually, right?
Right.
Because there's patterns that we were expecting that seemed pretty consistent, seemed like clockwork, didn't seem like anybody would need to sort of do them, and they've been disrupted now.
Yeah.
Which is honestly exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving on, Phantom Zone is back for 2 weeks. Fight 62 is still broken, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The shop and rewards are changing, but there's been no actual game update, right? So
double XP for this weekend, and it's funny because usually it's tied into some sort of North American holiday.
Yeah. Probably Mother's Day.
It might be Mother's Day, but it's a funny thing because this actually fits. What you do is it's unlikely that the people that are playing are moms. I mean, just looking at the demographics of the people that are watching our channel and people that play. So there's a good chance that if it is celebrating Mother's Day and if mothers are happy about it, it's because it gets people out of her hair.
There will be a certain number of moms playing this, certainly, but just proportionally, it does seem like it's a slightly less mom marketed game.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure there are more than a few moms who at some point have played it. There's also just not as many people playing it, period, now. So, whatever the proportional demographics are, the total number of people from any demographic has decreased.
Right. Last weekend's breakthrough for golds was Deadshot, Wonder Woman, Static. Coming weekends is probably going to be Zatanna, Flash, and Solomon Grundy. Link in the description to a thread in the Injustice mobile subreddit from Devlin16 that goes over the complete breakthrough cycle. And
now's when we would talk about glitches if it was the first week of the month. But it is not. You covered that last week without me. And honestly, there's been enough new stuff going on that, the fact that there's no updates and glitches is not something that I care about very much at all. Importantly, Phantom Zone and Challenge Reset are tested and working, and only reset one if you're willing to only reset your progress on either if you're willing to reset your progress on both, because it's the same technique, it's the same glitch essentially. It will reset progress on both of them at the same time. And there we go.
Okay, so this is where we like to give a big thank you to our patrons on Patreon. That would be Michael Devries, Irvin, Ruiz, Hoshi 127, and Nora Klimek, supporting us on the credited level, and 5x5, who's supporting us on the gratitude level.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your support. Thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.